Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Oh, sorry, good evening. It's 6 p.m. already. And welcome to this launch rally for our Rebuild the NHS, Get Private Profits Out campaign. This campaign is a We Own It campaign supported by Keep Our NHS Public and people from other NHS campaigning organizations with a goal of putting pressure on local NHS leaders in the new integrated care systems being constituted at the moment across the country, across England, to demand that they use this reorganization as an opportunity to move our NHS in the right direction, to reset the direction of travel in our NHS from going full steam toward privatization to reorienting and refocusing on the needs of local people and not the profits of private multinational corporations. As some of you may know, we have been campaigning against the Health and Care Bill in Parliament over the last 7 to 8 months. In July last year, the government tabled the Health and Care Bill, and very soon after that, we were able to organize 10,000 people to email the Public Bills Committee, to put pressure on the Public Bills Committee to demand that private companies be banned from sitting on ICS boards, and for that to be put in the bill, and for the Health and Care Bill to mandate that NHS trusts and foundation trusts are default providers of all NHS care. We were successful in getting a part of the first of those demands. We managed to get them to amend the bill to introduce a limited protection against private companies sitting on the new boards, but we were not able to get the demand that our NHS be made the default provider of NHS care. The bill has now come out of the House of Lords today, and we anticipate that it's almost certainly going to pass and get royal assent in short order. But we think that at the moment, there is an incredible opportunity as ICSs are actually being built across England at the moment, and they're in at different levels of essentially growth or maturation. We think that we have an incredible opportunity to influence the process of their development across the country. So that is what the Rebuild Our NHS campaign is built to do. It is built to say to the local NHS leaders and the chairs of the ICS boards that are being constituted that you have an opportunity to use this reorganization of the NHS to go in the right direction, to stop your travel down the wrong privatization road and go in the direction of publicly provided NHS services for people and not profit. And we think we can win this fight locally as well. We have already started winning it. Just last month, we found out sometime before that, but last month, we put out a press release in Bath and Northeast Somerset, demanding that the local NHS leaders in that area make a pledge that private companies like Virgin, who were given a seat on their shadow partnership board, that private companies will not sit on their ICS board. And very soon afterwards, we got in the press as well, the appointed chair of the local ICB coming out to say that they're pledging that private companies will not sit on their ICB board. So we know we can win with just a little bit of pressure on a local level. That is why we think it is really important to put pressure at that local level at this point, right? When they're still building those ICSs, there is an incredible opportunity for us to influence how it is built. And we know we can influence the local level. It is really important that we marshal pressure from everyone on this call and from tens of thousands of people across the country that have been involved in the fight against the Health and Care Bill, to put pressure on them to reorganize it in a way that works for people and not profit. So our plan is simply as follows. We want to send 3,000 emails to each of the 42 local NHS bodies that are being constituted across the country right now. That's really ambitious. That is about 126,000 emails going to those local NHS leaders. That is huge. That is massive. I'm not going to pretend as if it's not. But I believe that if we put our hands to it, all of us, we can achieve that goal. We are also planning on getting coverage in at least 60 local newspapers across the country and in all BBC radio stations across the country. We've already shown that we know how to organize for this with your help and with the work that has already been done by our press and comms people. We want to work together to get local coverage and spread the word about what's happening in our NHS and use that to put pressure on these local NHS leaders to go in the right direction. And finally, we want to organize local days of action across the country to get out on the street, raise the noise, speak to local people, spread the word, and get them asking the right questions to our local NHS leaders about what's happening and why they're not going in the right direction. So that is the plan for the campaign. And this evening, you'll be hearing from an array of amazing local NHS campaigners and union organizers who have been involved in campaigns on a local level and have won or have made an impact. Because I think it's really important for us to hear about people that have been doing this work that we're talking about, some of this work that we're talking about, and getting results. And at the end of the meeting, we will have actions that you can take right here and right now and begin having an impact of your own in your local NHS area. And of course, between the speeches and the action, we will have the brilliant Robb Johnson, who's going to offer us some musical refreshment just to break up the speaking for a bit. So that said, I am going to introduce quickly Ron Mendel. Ron is an NHS campaigner in Bristol who is going to speak to us this evening. Thank you very much, Ron.
Good evening. I'm about to tell you a story. It might sound apocryphal, but it actually did happen. As you probably can tell from my accent, I was not born and raised in this country. I was born and raised and lived in New York City for a good part of my life before relocating to England. And I had a health problem, abdominal pain. I went to a hospital, probably the most prestigious hospital in the area I was living. I was living in Brooklyn at that time. State of the art, technology, the best doctors, the best nurses. Before I had a chance even to describe the pain I had, how long I had the pain and other symptoms, the doctors wanted simply to know, did I have any health insurance? I said no. They weren't interested in the medical details of my condition. They said, basically, we're not quite sure we can treat you. So there I am trying to fight for healthcare, severe pain. I could not keep anything down. I was vomiting for hours and I had to fight for my own healthcare. They said, well, maybe we can ship you to another hospital. And they named the hospital. And I said, well, if you're going to send me to that hospital, you might as well send me to the morgue. And they just laughed. What do you mean? Well, this hospital was a hospital which was in a rundown district. It was noted for treating drug addicts and alcoholics, people who were beaten up in the streets. If I went to the A&E there, I would have to wait hours before I actually even seeing a doctor. I fortunately landed on my feet in terms of healthcare because they sent me to a small hospital which had excellent bedside care. But in the process of being in the hospital for 5 weeks, I ran up a bill of $18,000. Now, in today's dollars, that would probably be $60,000, $70,000. All right. So how am I going to find the money to pay for this? I wasn't really concerned about that at that stage because I just wanted to get back on my feet. I had to go for an operation and I come out of surgery and hope everyone is sitting down. Well, I'm about to tell you because you might find it very hard to believe. When I woke up from surgery, I saw the nurse and I also saw a bill pinned to my dressing gown from the anesthesiologist. I turned to the nurse and I said, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to bring my checkbook. And she just broke out in laughter. Now, you might ask, why am I telling this story? All right. I'm telling this story because that is what private healthcare means. In a health insurance system, you have to be able to afford health insurance. And there are about 30 million Americans who don't have health insurance. Health insurance is often tied to employment. If you're out of work, you're not going to have health insurance. And even if you have health insurance, you might not be covered for the condition that you need attention or treatment for. Because most health insurance companies have a clause that says no prior or previous conditions are covered by this policy. Now, you may ask me, why am I going into all this detail? Well, obviously, private healthcare is not healthy for the patient. Private healthcare is for the interests of the companies and their shareholders. But there's another lesson we could draw from this story, and we have to contextualize this. We are living in a situation right now where the waiting lists are going through the roof. The estimates might be over 10 million by the end of this year. Well, we know there are some patients who can afford to access private health care. Would you want to wait 52 weeks for a hip replacement? If you're a woman, 52 weeks for a hysterectomy, or a child, 52 weeks for a tonsillectomy? No, if you could afford it, you will basically look out for yourself and your family. But there are many people who cannot afford that. These people are being bypassed. Well, what this is doing, in my mind, is sensitizing or basically preparing people possibly for private healthcare. If people are already paying out of their pocket, we could see, I'm not being scaremongering here, but we could see if the Tories are reelected in the next election, we could say, we can't afford the NHS like we did before. We might have to move to a private healthcare system. Look at the dental system. We already pay out of pocket for NHS dental care, all right? It's not far-fetched to believe this could happen for routine treatments. So my message is basically, we have to do everything possible to fight to maintain the NHS as a publicly provided, publicly financed, publicly accountable service, free at the point of delivery. And I, who have had the experience of private healthcare, am going to devote every ounce of my energy towards that goal.
Thank you so much, Ron. That's just really heart-wrenching, the story you tell, but also very inspiring. So thank you so much for sharing it. I am now going to call on Gay Lee, an NHS campaigner in Lambeth, to speak to us.
Thanks very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hopefully, yeah, good. Okay, I'm going to talk briefly about a small and subtle victory for Lambeth Keep Our NHS Public in South London. Victories, however small, can raise spirits and energy levels. They're really important in this age of doom and gloom, and they can also be built on and used to get more and more victories. In Lambeth KOMP, we've been battling for a while with the slippery, sneaky integrated care structure of South East London, which of course are being set up long before legislation in the form of the Health and Care Bill has even been passed, and that's a scandal in itself. But there are plenty of ICS engagement meetings to which the public are invited to listen and ask questions about the ICS. But it's smoke and mirrors, and somehow we get the same PR response, no detailed information, and no feeling that they acknowledge any flaws with this latest Tory attempt at privatisation and destruction of our NHS. We get politicians' answers, complacent, devoid of anything that changes anything, and an unwillingness to properly engage with community groups, campaigners, and the public. So our story is this. We had a small rally in Windrush Square in Brixton as part of the SOS NHS Day of Action on 26th of February. The Labour lead cabinet member for health and care on Lambeth Council spoke at it. He's intimately involved with the South East London ICS and has always been very much part of the so-called public engagement about it, and never expressed negativity about the new system. In his speech for us, criticising the government's health policies, of course, he didn't once mention the Health and Care Bill. So we asked him outright at the meeting, will this bill going through Parliament do anything to solve the critical problems facing the NHS? The lack of money, the crumbling hospitals, the lack of decent staff pay, the dire workforce situation, the waiting lists, the COVID pressures, and money leaching into the private sector. His answer was a firm no. The health and care bill and the ICS plans have not addressed the real issues facing us. Well, our group were amazed and open-mouthed and very pleased he would say this publicly, albeit in a situation where he was surrounded by campaigners rather than ICS colleagues. But he's never said it before. So to try to use this in a local online ICS engagement meeting yesterday, surrounded by those colleagues, I thanked him very much for supporting our rally, for speaking out so honestly, and I let him and everyone else in the meeting know how pleased we were that this had got into a small but perfectly formed article in the local paper. So this is a good first step in Lambeth to get a public admission by an influential local politician that ICSs won't solve the problems of the NHS. Hopefully, it will help make it that much harder for those implementing these changes to get them done. And we can now try to use his words as leverage to shift other politicians away from their complacent embrace of these new structures and even get them to work with campaigners to minimise the damage they will do and to prioritise getting more public resources into our NHS. A small victory, but a step towards further victories. Thanks very much.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Gay, for that. And I mean, I think that highlights a really important point. It can often feel like we have no power in what's happening. And what you just really told us is that if we try, we can actually get them to listen. And thank you so much for that. I'm going to now invite John from John Whalley from Newcastle upon Tyne to speak to us.
Hi everyone, my name's John. I'm here from Keep Our NHS Public North East, based on Tyneside. I'm also a campaigner with We Own It, and it's great to be here at this very important rally and launch. So what I'd like to do tonight is outline what KONP North East did in the National Day of Action last month. And in particular, I'll highlight a few important things that we're now more aware of when we're planning events for the future. So here's a few top tips from the North East. So first of all, we learned that it's good for us not to shy away from new actions. And one of the events on the day last month centred around a beach rally at Tynemouth. And we've never done anything like that before. It was a first, and we initially thought, well, a beach event in the North East in February. It was new, but we stuck with the idea and it worked out really, really well. Another point is about people power, and a local resident in the area, when she knew about this idea, she offered to take a lead role and she mobilised her own personal contacts and she organised the door-to-door leaflet deliveries and linked up with the press. So thanks to the very inspirational Joan, if you're here tonight, it was joint work, but it felt very significant for us that a local resident was steering this. Next point is about the plan for the day involves speeches and entertainment, and also to develop a sort of a huge heart made out of people on the sand. So it's something about visual impact, and this was a great photo opportunity. We had a very clear sort of take-home message, but also, very importantly, it got people who were present involved and sort of owning part of the rally. So this is the, I don't know if that comes through on the camera, but we counted about, I don't know, just over 100 people. It was a heart. It didn't. You can perhaps make it out as a heart with the SOS NHS thing there. So it's something there about visual impact and also getting people involved. After forming the heart, we invited a wide range of people to speak from a range of perspectives, so to sort of keep things interesting. And we tried to get something for everyone. And contact was also made with 2 local musicians and also 2 local poets who read out their NHS poetry. So we tried to be creative and looking at different ways of getting the message across. And we believe that there's many, many local creative people just waiting to be asked. So don't hold back on that. So with a growing awareness that the activity on the day was just 33% of the event. So the other 33% is what happens beforehand in getting the word out and harnessing energy. And the last 33% is after the event, public awareness, social media, the press, and even now, sort of 1 month after that day, we're still tweeting bite-sized sort of quotes from the speakers. So the event is to be seen, you know, on the day, but also before, and making the most of it afterwards. Not everyone has other people around them or is part of an NHS campaign group. And we really do feel it's crucial to recognise that even one person or two people can be involved in planning their own action. So, for example, delivering leaflets along the street, or meeting with an MP, or writing to the paper. So all action, however small, has an impact. And who knows where this will end. And I'd just like to refer to that old Zen saying about the butterfly flapping the wings and setting into motion a sequence of events which may well scale up to something huge. We don't know where these events end. As a group, KUNP Northeast, we campaign on Tyneside. Also, at times, we ask our supporters to link up and work hand in hand with We Own It. And this collaboration works really, really well. So in terms of organisations, we believe it definitely doesn't need to be this organisation or that organisation. It's about making the most of the experience and the resources available at any given time, and it's all about collaboration. And finally, there's maybe two options regarding NHS campaigning. Option one is that we don't campaign and we don't fight for a publicly provided NHS. But if we do opt for option one, we'll definitely lose, and we'll have nil chance, and it's a big zero. Option two is that we campaign, we shout loud, we deliver the leaflets, we lobby MPs, we organise events. And by doing this, we will increase our chances of retaining our NHS as a publicly provided health service. And it's our belief that the NHS is certainly worth the work and the time and the effort to remain involved and to campaign really, really hard alongside the hundreds of other people across the country. So there we are. It's a few comments, points of interest from the Northeast. Thanks a lot for listening. It's lovely being here. Thanks, John Bosco, and thanks to everyone at We Own It for everything that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you so much, John, for your amazing and inspiring remarks. And I mean, it's winning from, as I see it, and from the way you explain it, it's not just about getting some kind of result from a leader like Gay described. And that's a critical element of it. If you don't get that, then of course, right? But it's also part of reaching out to a broader section of your community. And that's really, really key. And I think John really captured that. The next speaker is Pam from Whalley. Thank you so much, Pam, for being here.
Hi. For the past 6 years, the powers that be have been trying to close the A&E at Whalley and South River Hospital. However, a small and determined resourceful group of mostly elderly and relatively infirm local people, what the Guardian newspaper calls geriactivists, had different ideas. The A&E was temporarily closed in April 2016 due to staff shortages. In fact, staff shortages have been one of the main arguments put forward for the need to close throughout the whole campaign. We've never been confident, however, that recruitment was being pushed. So last year, our group produced our own very professional video telling healthcare staff why Whalley will be a great place to live and work. Public engagement programme was initiated to look at permanent closure. Due process meant they had to run 2 public engagement meetings within a set time limit in order to hold an official consultation regarding the closure. Campaigners attending all engagement meetings at all locations. We wore bright yellow hoodies and baseball caps. Here we go. And we were very, very visible. We attended Trust Board meetings, CCG meetings, joint CCG meetings, later ICS board meetings, and Lancashire Health Scrutiny meetings. At some meetings, we were not allowed to speak, but our very visible presence showed we were observing every move they made, and were able to highlight the fact that the engagement hadn't presented any solid evidence, nor had it engaged the public, but merely spoken at them. They completely failed to explain the reasoning behind the closure, and later in 2017, a second set of meetings was binned, and the whole new public consultation had to begin again. We hadn't won the war, but we'd held off the first wave. In 2020, the A&E closed so that staff could be redeployed to Preston to cope with the pandemic. In the meantime, we kept up activities. Tie a yellow ribbon for your A&E, so the town be decked with thousands of yellow ribbons, and was picked up by public and local businesses. The international televised Balkan bike race goes through our area, and the whole world could read our slogans chalked on the road surfaces the previous night. We courted press coverage. We leafleted each and every local event. The Saturday morning protest on the main road outside the hospital receives tremendous public support from beeping, waving motorists, and has continued throughout the entire period. And the fact that Christmas Day fell on Saturday this year made no difference. All public engagement was put on hold in 2020 due to COVID. In February 2021, the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, seemed particularly keen to cozy up to the Speaker of the House of Commons, Lindsay Hoyle, who just happens to be our Chorley's MP. An attempt to ingratiate himself saw him promising that Chorley and South Ribble Hospital A&E will never close and will be opened on a permanent basis forever. Soon after, our A&E did reopen on a part-time basis and is still open. What have we learned? Know your brief inside out, read all the documents, find out facts and figures, use their protocols and procedures against them. At some consultations, we were able to demonstrate we knew more of the detail than they did. Be in for the long haul. They want you to get worn down and give up. Let them know you won't give in and will dog them forever. Take a pride in being irritating. A mosquito is tiny, but it has the power to drive a huge buffalo mad. Be stoical. At first, you are a few voices crying in the wilderness, but it takes time for the public to come on board. Advertisers know the power of persistence. Keep going, and eventually the public will catch up. Thank you for listening.
I felt like saying boom at the end of that. That was just amazing. Thank you so much. Wow, I really love that element of a mosquito is tiny, but it could irritate a buffalo to death. And that's what we plan on doing. We want to send 3,000 emails. I don't think that they have received that volume of emails before to each of the 42 ICSs. And I mean, Pam has just inspired me. I feel like I should get sending emails right now. But before we do, we're going to be listening to Len Hockey from Unite, who is leading the local fight, or rather the fight at Bath's NHS Trust to get circle workers insourced into the local NHS Trust. Welcome, Len.
Thanks, John, and thanks for the invite to this very important launch meeting this evening. Just by way of a little bit of background, I've worked at Whipps Cross Hospital for the last 33 years. First 8 of them, I was employed directly by the NHS. I work as a porter. After that, we were outsourced, and I think I've worked for about 6 contractors over the course of the last years. We've had industrial action and been forced to take strike action against 3 of them. And tonight, I'm just going to outline the campaign we've had recently, which has ended up in a landmark victory, in my view, where we've secured pay increases for workers, and we've won, importantly, a return in-house when this contract is terminated. And last year, we targeted 3 of the 5 hospitals that Barts Trust covers, Barts being the biggest trust in England. The hospitals, namely Whipps Cross, the Royal London Hospital and St Bartholomew's Hospital itself. 600 workers employed in job roles as porters, cleaners, security guards, back of house catering workers, and reception staff. Unsung heroes, but absolute integral links in the chain of care delivered to every patient that comes in to these hospitals. Workers overwhelmingly female and overwhelmingly migrant workers. A long history of exploitation that goes in part, as we all know, with outsourcing. Outsourcing, I've said, is an inherently racist construct, and it's the reason why our entire movement has to defeat it. We did last year table a pay claim to my employer Serco, which was for parity with our sisters and brothers directly employed, undertaking the same roles as us in the NHS. And that really was to close a gap of about 15% at worst, at most, I should say, with some of our colleagues who do these same jobs. The offer from the company was 1%. 1%, a real terms pay cut, an absolutely derisory offer. We've gone through, as we all know, 2 years of a pandemic, which we haven't come out of yet. We've seen scenes that none of us should have expected and would have expected to have seen when we took up our employment in the health service. Key workers, essential workers, applauded, and we all recall, applauded by the Tories, you know, every evening. And yet this is what, on their watch, what on the watch of Bart's Trust, this is where we ended up. Well, of course, we didn't accept that. We organised, we balloted the 600 workers, and at the end of last year, on the day after the company said that was their final offer, that we landed a 98% vote in favour of strike action, which I think was phenomenal, really, in terms of the odds that are stacked against you. You know, workers and mine members undertake 2, 3, and sometimes 4 jobs just to scrape a living in one of the most high-cost cities in the world, in London. And, you know, really, really proud of that. Well, that had an effect. And I should say, during the course of the campaign at the end of last year, Serco served notice on Bart's Trust that they were leaving. They were leaving the contract a year early. And I would say in no small measure to the resistance that Unite reps have put up over the course of the last 5 years. We were very happy at the receipt of this news, but some workers managed to think that possibly they wouldn't find any more money. Well, on the back of that result for industrial action, not only did they find money, but Bart's Trust became involved, and they did start to find more money between the two of them. And therefore, after the Christmas period, they upped the offer to 3%, still not enough. But fundamentally, where this ended up, after a magnificent campaign of 2-week strike action from the 31st of January, concluding on the 13th of February, where scenes of picket line attendances of 160 and not less than 75 marches, where workers from Whipps Cross went to the Royal London, went to Bart's, went to Whipps Cross. We marched up and down the road. We had huge rallies and demonstrations. The Trust Board met and finally decided that they would award the contract in-house. All of the services will be returning in-house on the 1st of May. And that's going to be, as I say, about just under 2,000 workers. 2,000 workers who have shown that you can, as the most exploited layers in society, you can if you organise, if you can combine together. And one of the things I think that's come out of this dispute is that the picket line is a huge educator. It educates you in terms of you generalise your own experience. You hear stories on the picket line of what's happening in your own hospital that you didn't know what was going on. Why? Because all the social clubs have gone that were there years ago. They want you to come into work, employers these days. Any industry, I believe. Go in, do the work, be exploited, and leave and go, and don't talk to each other. On the picket line, we had them discussions. We built up our solidarity. We took the message out. We inspired others outside in other industries. They in turn inspired us. So, you know, I'm happy to be able to say now that on the 1st of May in 2023, my sisters and brothers will take up our rightful place beside our directly employed colleagues in the NHS, and together we will fight to refound the NHS on truly socialist lines. Thanks very much, sisters and brothers. Thank you.
Oh my God. Thank you so much, Len. That was just amazing. Thank you very much. I mean, it would have been remiss if we had this rally and did not invite Len and the comrades at Bart's, because, I mean, they're really a testimony to the fact that fighting will win you something. And John said it earlier. If we don't fight, we will lose 100% of the time. If we fight, we may still lose, but we do have a chance of winning, right? And what everybody has told us this evening is that, yes, wins actually do come by, and people are getting it across the country every day. And that brings us to our next speaker, Louise Irvine, who is part of the Lewisham Save Our Hospital campaign.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. I've been asked to speak today to give another example of how campaigning works. So in Lewisham, in 2012, Jeremy Hunt, then Health Secretary, wanted to close our local hospital, Lewisham Hospital. Lewisham was a popular, much needed local hospital with a busy A&E and maternity unit, yet the powers that be decided it had to go. People in Lewisham were having none of it. We organised a massive campaign and we saved our hospital. We had a demonstration of 25,000 people through the streets of Lewisham. We took the government to court and we won, and we beat them on appeal as well. We're often asked the key to our success. The first thing is to overcome the feeling that it's all pointless, a done deal, that there's nothing you can do. That is not true. When we started the campaign, there were just 12 of us, and the task seemed daunting. Nevertheless, we set about organising the widest possible support, and we built up enough momentum to turn the tide. We had clear, simple, attractive messaging. We had fantastic posters, which we gave away free for people to put up in their houses. So entire streets were lined with our posters. We used the local press. We got the support of the hospital and community, NHS staff, GP practices, our local council and MPs, local schools and colleges, pensioners groups, faith groups, the local football club, Millwall, trade unions, and even small businesses. This campaign tonight is different, and it's not about saving a local hospital, but it is about something close to people's hearts, preventing and reversing the privatisation of our NHS. We know from opinion polls that people are opposed to privatisation, but most don't know it's happening as it's done under the radar. We can shine a light on it and give people a focus. Local campaigning can be very effective, especially targeting the actual people who are making the decisions about whether private companies are invited onto the boards and about who gets the contracts. We need to organise massive pressure on those people, demanding to be heard at board meetings, writing thousands of letters to board members, to the press, involving councillors and MPs. Raise it in your union or workplace. Talk to people in your family. Use social media. Join local campaign groups, organising actions such as leafleting and picketing. So there's things that individuals can do, and there's things that people can do as a group. I just want to reiterate, and it's what others have said, but it's so true. If you don't fight, you will lose. If you do fight, you might win. This is the lesson of Lewisham and the lesson of every successful struggle for our rights that has ever existed. Thank you.
Oh my God, I have goosebumps right now. Thank you so much, Louise. I would say there are two main themes that have come out of this meeting. If you don't fight, you will lose 100% of the time. If you do fight, you might win. And mosquitoes are tiny, but they could drive a mighty buffalo mad, right? That's the message of this evening. The next speaker is Mike, who was involved in a campaign in Huddersfield to save the local infirmary. Mike Forster.
Hi everyone, thanks for the invite tonight. It's great to see so many of my fellow campaigners who we've met on the campaign trail in Huddersfield, a town in West Yorkshire. Our story in 2016, the local trust dropped a bombshell on the town of about 200,000 people to tell us that they were going to close our hospital and our A&E. There was huge anger in the town, as you can imagine, and massive shock that they could contemplate losing a hospital for a town this size. A Facebook group was established, 50,000 people joined, and a mass campaign got underway. The role of the campaigners was to ensure that mass anger was organised through the group that became known as Hands Off HRI. This has been the biggest campaign in the town's post-war history. The first demo we organised of 8,000 was the biggest demonstration that's ever taken place in the town. But demos and mass campaigns, of course, as we know, are never just enough. And we had to break through the latent feeling that some have talked about, that this was a done deal, which Louise was mentioning. In fact, we developed a placard in the phrase of a Yorkshire dialect, it's a done deal if you do nowt. And we encourage people to get involved, to become active and join our campaign. We set up local groups in most of the areas of Huddersfield. We engaged a solicitor to help us with legal action. We organised events on a regular basis. We, of course, had regular features in the media, and we set about raising funds to challenge them in a judicial review. We raised over £80,000 over the course of the campaign itself. We were successful in taking them to a judicial review. At the pre-hearing, the judge ordered that there was secure grounds for us to take a full judicial review. But before that took place, the same Secretary of State that Louise talked about, Jeremy Hunt, intervened. And he intervened to say that the hospital should not be closed, and that the A&E should not only stay open, but that they should build a new accident and emergency in our town. Was it just the legal action that stopped them? No, it was the kind of pressure that other campaigners have talked about. Mass pressure on local councillors, on the trust, the consultation meeting that we demanded. They held at the biggest indoor public venue in Huddersfield. And we demanded that the residents of Huddersfield turn out and make sure that that was not big enough. 300 people were locked outside because there wasn't sufficient space inside. That's the kind of mass pressure that forced the trust. Wherever they went, they were met by hands off HRI. We sustained the campaign, and during the course of it, we linked up with other campaign groups, with our great comrades from Chorley, who we heard from, of course, with Louise and the Lewisham group. And when we lobbied Downing Street with our petitions, we met up with all of those campaigners, and we decided to set up, well, to organise a national demonstration. And between us, a small organising committee, we held the historic NHS demo in 2017 of 250,000. We proved what can be done with small groups if you fight. So I think the message from our campaign is the same as the others, really. Don't give up. Organise throughout your local community. Realise that you're hurting them more than you realise. And of course, that you can win. That, of course, is the message of this evening's rally. We're very grateful to Health Campaigns Together to keep our NHS public, who have helped us along the way, and of course put us in touch with other campaign groups like We Own It. So I'd echo what everybody else has said. You can win as long as you keep at it. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, John. Mike. That was just amazing. I mean, the more of these stories I hear, the more inspired I'm feeling this evening. And I hope everyone else who's listening is feeling as inspired. I mean, you don't have to organize a protest that has 250,000 people in it, or even a protest that has 5,000 people in it. But if you can organize your family, you can have some impact. Organize friends, I know, for example, I lived in Brighton for some years, and a lot of our housing campaigns always depend on organizing the people living in your household. You get 5 people, pick out a landlord, a letting agency, and you win the thing you want. Now imagine what organizing your street looks like and organizing the people around your area, like Mike and Pam and Louise have been talking about this evening. That's just amazing. Thank you so much. The next speaker is Helen Fields from Southampton, who's going to be talking to us about the work they've been doing.
Thank you, John Bosco. Hello, everybody. I'm Helen Field. I'm based in Southampton. And behind me, I've got our march that we did on the 26th of February, and it's led by the poster from Unite. I've been a member, a supporter of We Own It for many years, but I've also been in Unite community since it started. And Unite were brilliant on supporting SOS NHS. And I was so proud that we got a great little demo going there. I'm just bowled over by the speakers tonight. It's absolutely wonderful. I want hats like Pam's got. I've got so many ideas from what everybody's saying. It's wonderful. I'm glad it's been recorded. I'm not going to talk for very long. I just wanted to say that a couple of 100 years ago, I reckon people felt exactly like we did. That, you know, at the start of the 19th century, they were fighting for trade union workers' rights and civil rights, and they must have felt just like I does, despairing and then hopeful and then getting together. And I think it's really important to remember that the Tolpuddle martyrs, that probably everybody knows about them, but it was nearly 200 years ago. 6 of them were labourers. They were just trying to stop their wages going down. What's new? They were trying to just work for 10 bob a week, and they were charged and sent off to Australia, to a banished to Australia penal colony. But the most amazing thing was that it was all overturned, and it was done with the people back home campaigning in Britain were phenomenal. They got 800,000 signatures on a petition, you know, and with no digital help like what we've got, but 800,000 petitions, and one of the biggest, most successful marches ever. So they did it, and all those six farm labourers were all pardoned. So that really just shows that, you know, 200 years ago, they were just like us. They felt like us. They were despairing. They were trying to fight for a better life. And we've got to remember that, I think. And what I just want to finish off by saying is, you know, let us make sure that when future generations are looking back over history, they can say, oh, we nearly lost the NHS in the early 2020s. But we didn't, because of all those marvellous campaigners that were campaigning all over England, all over Britain to keep the NHS going. So we've got to do it. I think what you're doing, John Bosco, is brilliant. And I'm going to, you know, like everybody else, really work hard to get all these ICBs to get our say on them, because when it's not over, we haven't lost, and we're still battling ahead. So keep going, everybody. Keep fighting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Helen. That's just amazing. Thank you. And I mean, I think that was actually really fitting that we started off with Ron, who kind of gave us a sense of what we would be like, or what life would be like if we did not have the NHS. And people still live those lives in the United States right now. Every year, 40,000 people die in the United States, the apparent greatest country in the world, from not having health insurance or basic health care. People die in Nigeria, my country of birth, from a similar issue, right? So it's not unimaginable. If we lost the NHS, we'd go right back to what it was like before we got the NHS. So it was really important to start there, but it was also really important to end on Helen's note of people have been fighting and winning for centuries. And everybody who has spoken to us this evening has told us a story about how they fought and won as recently as last month, right? So the purpose of all of this is really to inspire you to get involved, to take action, get over. A lot of people are despairing. A lot of people often speak about these issues in a way that make others despair. I would encourage you not to despair. Take action, get involved, speak to your friends, speak to your family, speak to your colleagues at work, speak to people who come into your businesses, speak to people at your church, your mosque, or your synagogue, speak to everybody. This fight is important, and we can win it if we organize. And finally, we're going to have John Puntis, who's the co-chair of Keep Our NHS Public nationally, and they're supporting the campaign, and John is here to speak to us about why Keep Our NHS Public is backing the campaign.
Thanks very much, John Bosco. Yeah, I'm going to just round things off, I hope. Keep Our NHS Public is pleased to support We Own It's campaign over the integrated care systems. We know it's aimed at keeping private companies from any positions of influence in the new structures, and of course, ultimately at ending the privatisation and outsourcing of NHS services. Now, these are very important demands. The dangers from the involvement of private companies in healthcare are well known. They include price fixing, fraud, cronyism, and expensive bureaucracy. And most importantly, despite what we're often told, private health companies are not cost minimizers, they are profit maximizers. They take money that could be used to look after patients and they give it to shareholders. If this campaign proves effective, as I hope it will do, there's other demands that might be put forward including highlighting the fact that the bill fails to ensure that emergency care provision is a responsibility of integrated care boards, and the need for improved democratic representation on the boards, openness of meetings, papers being available to the public, people being allowed to put questions, etc. Overall composition is still, of course, that the bill should be thrown out in its entirety, but it does look unlikely that that's going to happen. Now, one form of privatization is simply withdrawal of state provision, leading to growth of the private sector funded by those who can afford or who can find loans to buy them care. And that's something which is very much in evidence at present. But there's been a recent survey just published this month from the Institute for Public Policy Research. And this showed that public support for the core principles of the NHS actually remains extremely strong. Most people from across different regions, demographic lines, party political allegiances, most people support a universal, comprehensive, free and tax-funded health system. Free at the point of delivery, 88%. Comprehensive, 88%. Funded out of general taxation, 79%. So by far the most important case for rebuilding the NHS is this almost universal support among the public for its founding principles. This is something we need to remember and to take heart from. Now, sometimes it is dispiriting to see that the will of the people is being ignored by government. Many of us are not buoyed up by being part of big, successful campaigns, for example, to stop a hospital closing. However, we can still celebrate those gains and be inspired by them. And we also should ask, how much worse would things now be if not for campaigners raising their voices? Writing letters, emails, tweets, use of social media, showing solidarity on picket lines, asking questions at meeting, being seen. All these are things that we can all do to help change the narrative. We need a new narrative. For example, equality and avoiding a two-tier system in healthcare supports both social and economic justice. Publicly provided healthcare is more equal, more efficient, more transparent and accountable than privately provided care. Spending on healthcare actually boosts the economy. It may be also that defending the people is not so much about spending more on the armed forces, which I'm hearing on the radio every morning. It may be that government's first duty of defending the people is actually protecting them with excellent health and care services with decently paid and looked after staff. Health and social care are not unaffordable luxuries, but they're actually fundamental to improving people's quality of life. So let's go from this meeting determined to change the story, to challenge the politicians, and to fight for the NHS as a comprehensive, publicly funded, publicly accountable and publicly delivered service available to all. My thanks to We Own It and the team for all their energy and enthusiasm, all the speakers who've been very inspirational tonight. Together, collectively, we are strong, and together, I believe we can win. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. That's amazing. All right, now that the speakers are done, we have just 2 sections of the meeting left, and we're going to be finished in the next 10 to 15 minutes. But before we move over to actually asking you to take action, please don't go. We are launching our amazing brand new tool that we've designed. And I think it's the first of its kind in England at the moment, that a tool that tells you which of the ICSs you belong to. At the moment, it's all being done hush-hush by the government, and people don't actually know which ICSs they are part of. What we have done is that we designed a tool that just requires that you put in your postcode. It tells you what ICS you belong to. It tells you what the name of the chair of your ICS is, and it tells you how to take action to put pressure on your ICS by sending them a letter. But before we get to that, I'll be inviting Robb Johnson, a musician from Brighton, to play us some music before we move on to action, just to soften us up from all of the speaking.
Right. Yeah, superb speaking. Really enjoyed those speakers. Well, my story's nothing special. It's much the same as yours. I might be 27 or I might be 54. I might be 5 weeks early or I might be 95. But it won't be hope and glory keeping me alive. Oh yes, that's the ballad of the NHS. The ballad of the NHS. Well, a sister from the NHS, she held my mother's hand the day I took my first breath, free at the point of demand. And when I had the measles, and when I bashed my knee, this doctor from the NHS, she fixed me up for free. Oh yes, that's the ballad of the NHS. The ballad of the NHS. And though the pound devalues and up the Beatles break, well, we knew that we could carry on with matron Hattie Jakes. And it might just be a little prick to you, but not to me. And when you're feeling Tom and Dick, they treat you equally. Oh yes, that's the ballad of the NHS. The ballad of the NHS. Well, you might be hoity-toity, you might be common as muck, but it shouldn't depend on the money you've got, and it shouldn't depend on your luck. Cause everybody's body gets sick and tired and stressed, so everybody's body deserves the very best. Oh yes, that's the ballad of the NHS. The ballad of the NHS. Well, there were all those years of PFI and then austerity, and some of you will have to die for herd immunity. Well, you might be 5 weeks early, you might be 95, but it won't be Richard Branson who's keeping you alive. Whoa, yes, that's the ballad of the NHS. 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 Ooh, matron. That's the ballad of the NHS. Do you want another one, quick one?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, right. It is a bit expensive, but it keeps your country free. You buy it from the US to defend democracy. You don't have to worry about service parts and spares, cause there's lots of US bases that you never knew were there. Oh, tried, money down the drain. It can kill all living creatures, it can kill them all again. So it's time we got together and it's time we made a fuss, so we can bury Trident before it buries us. Before we had the A-bomb, we used to have these wars, but since we've got a deterrent, we don't have them anymore. We didn't have Korea just after World War II, and all that war on terror, well, we didn't have that too. Oh, Trident, money down the drain. It can kill all living creatures, it can kill them all again. So it's time we got together, it's time we made a fuss, so that we can bury Trident before it buries us. I would happily pay for an orchestra where everyone plays tuba. I would happily pay for a health service as good as they've got in Cuba. But we don't want Richard Branson playing hospitals and trains, and we don't want Armageddon parked up at Vaseline. So Trident, money down the drain. It can kill all living creatures, it can kill them all again. So it's time we got together, time we made a fuss, so that we can bury Trident and have a hospital on every street corner. brilliant before it buries us.